Hey guys, word to the wise. I just want to touch on some things that I've been listening out for over the last couple of weeks. Um, I've heard a lot. This comes around every couple of years, maybe even every year. Somebody always pushing at Syria, Christian persecution. A lot of people talk about the rise of Islam and its dangers, and people say it's peaceful, like Buddhism or something like that. But a lot of a lot of people that read into it that are not, and they can point out the falsehoods of that kind of an idea by saying, "Look, you look at these scriptures and those scriptures, and you can see how one person was married to a child and things of that." I watch and I see a lot of both. A lot of these arguments, and I saw somebody the other day was talking about Chrislam, which is, I believe it's kind of like putting all of the three religions they had in the Abrahamic Accord. So I think it's Judaism, Islam, and then Christianity, they say, but it's a Catholic Christianity. That kind of mindset, because I heard that people were showing, I think it was 2022, they were showing manuscripts of the guidelines, and I believe like you could not go into the Judean or the Muslim, and I'm not really 100% on the Catholic, but you couldn't bring a cross into the building. You couldn't have the word Jesus written on anything. So, it was part of the Accords. Every time I hear about Christian persecution, things that are happening in that timepiece land now, I was at a place getting some hydraulic hoses made up, and the guy had, MSNBC or something like that on, and it was showing Congress, and I believe it was Bernie Sanders was talking, and he was saying about the atrocities that have happened in Gaza over the last 2 years. Here we are saying, they, in the timepiece land, Israel, are saying, well, if somebody attacked California, what would you do? Okay, very good point. We would not allow somebody just to walk in, especially just crossing the border, and make havoc of our land. There would be some pretty good price to pay. The problem is that what we've seen over the last 2 years, they've kind of put in front of our faces on purpose. I mean, they didn't have to, but they did. So you couldn't just not see things that were happening. Same things that are happening in Ukraine with Russia. There was that apartment building in the middle of town that has a gigantic hole blown in the middle of a towering building. It's like, why would you take the time to spend the time and money, effort to launch a missile at your enemies and hit an apartment building? Why do these missiles and such never land on a good, worthy target, like a military installation or the governor's office? Oh, well, you got to keep to the accords, and there's the rules of warfare, and it's like, so you can shoot at schools, parks, and daycares and apartment complexes. That's all fair game when fighting your enemy. You're not hurting your enemy, you're attacking their people, which is what I always say. The problem I see in war is that, why does it never, like I just went over? So with that, you can look at things with that kind of a scope from now on. Put that in your pocket and just keep that in mind. The thing, while I was even at this guy's business, he was a Christian, not a Catholic, not an Orthodox. We were speaking about the time peace land as it is in the Old Testament. And he even said it, which blew my mind, because I haven't heard a lot of people say that. People always speak about Old Testament prophecies of Israel as the land of Israel today. And it's like, no, it's not the same thing. When you're looking at Revelation 20, that beloved city, that is the saints in Jesus that are in that city where fire rains down on Gog and Magog. So that's not the same thing. That's why when you look at Ezekiel 38, I always mention this to kind of just keep it out there. Every time I hear it, people say, oh, well, the valley of dry bones that came together and formed people, and they walked and life was breathed into them. They always speak about it as, oh, this is a metaphorical, and look at all the people are coming back into Israel and it's becoming alive again. So we're seeing Ezekiel 37 coming to pass right now before our eyes. And they always point a lot to Zechariah 12, which I've said the same thing. It's like, well, you look at Zechariah 12 and the whole world is coming against that land. As in Revelation 20, when the four corners and Satan has gathered the four corners and the armies to come against that great city, and fire rains down from heaven and destroys them. Which I always say, the deception in that, I believe, is in Revelation 13 in the second beast, where they deceived the people and made fire come down from heaven. So not the same time frame, 1,000 years separation, but they will have the ability to say, and that's why I think, going full circle back to the beginning of this conversation, that's the danger in what people, I think, are, I think, in my opinion, not saying that I'm reading it out of this, I'm saying that the Chrislam idea is going to be something that has been put in place to then come back and be a peace offering. And people will agree to that. So what has to happen first is that you're going to have some sort of my guess, something in those three sects are going to come against each other in some way. I saw that just the other week, maybe, or two ago, the numbers in the UK of Muslim people are so great that they voted in a Muslim believing person into their parliament. It might even be like I don't think it's a prime minister, I think it's a head. But having that happen, I mean, look at what's happening in America. We're having all this migration of people coming in illegally. And how would you fix that kind of a situation? You're going to have to then have an ID system made up to then just say, you know what, if you guys are so for not having, this is what I think Trump's argument's going to be, is that if you guys want to keep your family, your friends, and people who are employing these guys, you want to keep them here, well, this is what you have to do. We're going to have to ID them because there's so much that we don't know who came in and who did not, who has the correct ID and who does not. So unfortunately, we're going to have to probably put some sort of an ID for everybody. But here again, going into the Chrislam, I wonder if there's going to be some sort of a conflict. They could say it's, it could arise in some weird way. We don't know who's here. And it could be sleeper cells that pop up out of the woodwork that are already scattered across the country, positioned in key places, and who knows what could happen. But imagine that something like that happens, and then, you know, you have Iraq and whoever over there that is against America already, that, you know, is totally, and that's why I think it'll be supported by outside groups. I'm not going to say I have any information of who those people would be, but to prop that up, that information getting out blatantly in front of your face, whether you want to hear it or not, you know, just scattered, you know, sprinkled into everything, so that way you know what's going on. And something like that Civil War movie that came out, I never watched it. I saw that I can get it on one of those platforms, and I should watch it just to see. But there again, it's like a propagandist kind of movie that is there to put that kind of scenario of warfare happening on American soil, which has never really happened in how many hundreds of years, you know, since like the Civil War or Revolutionary War. I don't know the order of all those things, but nothing like that has ever happened, you know, for World War I or II. You know, we went somewhere to fight against that. You know, the Korean War, the the Vietnam War. Like, none of that stuff affected American soil in North America, you know, Canada or Mexico. So imagine if, you know, and it wouldn't be Americans against Americans, but some sort of, you know, something internal, who knows. But so I don't want to get too far off here, but with that kind of thing happening, and then you get this Antichrist figure pop up out of the woodwork who can easily, like flipping switches on, fix the situation, bring peace. We need to understand Chrislam. And I doubt they're going to call it that, but it's going to be something that they can say where everybody has to be on board. We need to understand. We need to believe. And if something happens in Israel and America is backing them up and they're enemies, and they could say, well, this is the Magog Gog situation spoken of in the Bible, in the Old Testament, and fire rains down. What would that fire be? Imagine military action raining down on their enemies, and you would have so many churches and pastors in America saying, wow, God, you know, somehow America or you know, somebody came along and protected them from this attack, and look, again, Israel comes out on top. I got to get back to work, so I mean, I was going to kind of do like a little reading out of Daniel and kind of pointing towards the two witnesses in Revelation chapter 11. If you look at that, where those things are happening, the abomination, that one portion where it says, you know, the king does not honor the God of their fathers, you know, a God their fathers did not know. And I know that Islam came after Jesus, but they could also say that, you know, Jesus came after the Old Testament, after Moses, after the first, you know, after David. So Jesus and Christianity can be just as bad. I mean, this is just hitting me just now, so I'm just kind of spitballing this out right now. But it's like, we've heard of the Noahides in the past, you know, worshiping only one God. God never walked on earth, so to believe in anything else would be blasphemous and have penalties, pretty severe. We won't go over that now. So, for another time, but I'm glad that I was able to kind of get this out. I've been trying to make this video for a while, and I had a surgery done, so I'm really recouping. I'm kind of the best I've been in a week's time. I had it a week ago, and I can finally walk at a normal, I can move around normally. So all in all, I'll leave it at that. Just a word to the wise. God bless. people that are looking for like the beast system to pop up out of the woodwork, out of nowhere, just remember the first beast has 42 months, 3.5 years time to kind of bring in his. That's why I think there's a deception with the first beast out of the sea, is because he brings all this prosperity, which then captivates many of the Christians and the saints, and that's when, you know, they're just buying into, you know, the world's coming out of the darkness, we're going to be saved, peace on earth, good, and then when that beast is no longer in power, because I mean you can only do like for example, like the American president can only do 2 terms. People say, well, we want to keep him in there, but imagine that he can't, and then we go into another wave. You know, here we are going into an up wave, and then all of a sudden it's going to go back into a down wave. Imagine Kamala Harris somehow comes back on the ballot for the next presidency and she wins, and how detrimental that could be to America. So, again, one more time, I'll leave it at that. Just a word of the wise. God bless, guys. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you in the next one.